Apartheid is an official policy of racial segregation, formally practiced in the Republic of South Africa. It's political, legal, and economic discrimination against non-whites. That's what it was in South Africa. It's a policy, and that's important. Remember, it's a policy or practice of separating or segregating groups. You know, white-only beaches, bus stops for non-whites. You know, it was a legal policy. And if you draw that parallel, Israel is also an apartheid state, and the Palestinian propagandists have done it in a very smart way. They've used these kind of images, especially comics, that in popular culture which show this, almost kind of equating the two, that they are the same. I mean, this was carried on the back of London buses for a while. There's a picture of Nelson Mandela wearing a keffiyeh, staring at the Dome of the Rock. It's powerful imagery. You know, if you do not know anything about these issues, you've heard the word apartheid, it creates this very powerful association between the two, that the facts don't matter. Actually, a saying from Goebbels that if you keep telling a lie, it becomes the truth. And that's kind of the situation we're in. It's the stealing of history. The key to kind of the Palestinian narrative is stealing history, stealing the South African apartheid narrative, bringing in things like genocide, saying that Israel is the new Nazis. It's this constant stealing and appropriating the history of others. Now, you've probably seen this quote. Somebody actually sent me this recently. We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians, by Nelson Mandela. Okay? Used frequently, all the time, on t-shirts that the Palestinian groups use. It's interesting that they never actually put the full quote on, because the next sentence he said, but we know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians, without the resolution of conflicts in East Timor, the Sudan, and other parts of the world. And this was a speech at the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. So it was a wider quote. Also, it's interesting because Mandela visited Israel. If he thought Israel was such an awful place, he said this in '97 about freedom. But in 1999, he visited Israel and said, I cannot conceive of Israel withdrawing if the Arab states do not recognize Israel within secure borders. Again, conveniently left out. And again, if you are somebody who respects Nelson Mandela, and most people do, in my experience, if you're given that quote ending there, talking about the Palestinians, it brings across that Nelson Mandela had chosen a side and supported the Palestinians, which isn't factual. Yes, he did, but it's not that clear cut. As I said, apartheid is a legal system, it's a social policy. And if you want to tackle this, the most important and fundamental place you have to go is Israel's own legal system. What does Israel's law say about race? So Israel doesn't have a constitution. It has its Declaration of Independence. And it says it plainly there. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places of all religions, and it will be faithful to the principles of the Charter of the United Nations. Even in the middle of a war, and we're not talking a war where you're separated by an ocean, literally Israel's fighting for its very existence. If Israel loses this war, it's over. The Jews have nowhere to go. Europe taught them that. They're going, okay, look, just stop. Let's figure this out. And even today, in Israel's parliament, you have people like Hanin Zoabi in the Knesset. Again, how I feel about that is that's another separate issue. But there is representation. You didn't have black members of South Africa's parliament. You didn't have black judges. You didn't have, it doesn't, it's such a ridiculous statement. It's incredible that it still perceives today. So this is the reality in few bullet points. All Israelis, as you saw, have equal rights and are protected by the law. It's important that it's Israeli citizens. Okay? Israel has a right to its citizens. In the same way, any country has a right to protect its citizens. Those who remain within the borders of Israel and were given the option to take an Israeli citizenship and refused, that's a different situation. They come under the Palestinian Authority, so you can't blame Israel for your poor choices. Be they Druze, Israeli Arab, Jews of all colors, Christians or other groups, they're all protected under the law. Israel is proud of its democratic and pluralistic nature. Arabic and Hebrew are the official languages. Again, if you're an apartheid state, and the claim is that Israel is an apartheid state against the Arabs, why make Arabic an official language? It doesn't make sense. There's no logic there. you know, this is Israel. This is not propaganda. This is Israel. This is the IDF. You have people from every country. You have Jews from every nation. This was Israel's master chef. Okay, and I mean, you couldn't have planned this better. You had a Arab Muslim finalist, a Jewish woman, and the tall Christian dude who just looks happy to be there. And you have Arab members of the parliament. I don't want to comment on them at this moment. You have Druze.
He won it too.
Pardon?
The Christian guy, I think he won it.
Yeah, I think he was the only one. So, you have Jews from Ethiopia. I mean, this is Israel. Like, literally, none of these pictures are doctored. This is the reality. It's an interesting thing. Look, if Israel is such a racist country, why is its military so diverse? Israel's military isn't like, it's not like the Swiss military who are sitting there not doing anything. It's a military which is at war, and you're going to see combat. You don't serve a country where you could die if you believe it's racist. You just don't. It's not logical.
It was Druze that were shot.
Yeah, the border guards in Jerusalem. George Deek, who is an Arab Christian diplomat, he's that chap is Muslim Arab, the highest ranking Muslim Arab in the IDF. Israel's democracy. But there is apartheid in that region. There are two forms of apartheid, and I can't even remember if I covered it in this presentation. The first is Jews are not allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. And the second is these delightful signs.
Reverse apartheid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those signs.
And these signs. This road leads to Area A under the Palestinian Authority. The entrance for Israeli citizens is forbidden, dangerous to your lives, and is against the Israeli law. Because, and I've heard people argue, people from certain Jewish groups, like If Not Now, that no, that's Israel being overly cautious and trying to scaremonger. Very difficult when the leader of the Palestinian Authority, the guy who is the apparent moderate, says, I will never allow a single Israeli to live among us on Palestinian land. Again, it's his words, not mine. And what I do cover it. Again, the Temple Mount. Jews are not allowed to pray and will be arrested if they do, normally by Israeli police.
Kasim, just